Danny, here at Bionic Buzz, we're all about people's passion. Where did your passion for music come from? Was there an album you heard, live performance you saw, or something that was just naturally for you as a child?
Oh boy, there's a few different sources on that. My granddad was a songwriter, and I think he was a big influence on me in a lot of ways. He's an outdoorsman, and he fished, and he also had an old gut string Spanish guitar, so I think that was part of it. And then, there was a couple artists that I heard that just knocked me down. One was Marty Robbins, and the other was Elvis Presley. And gosh, like watching Elvis's, of course it wasn't live or anything, but I was watching a rerun of the '68 comeback special, and I just got, just floored by that and what he could do, how he could affect people with a guitar. And it just became something I wanted to do, and I kind of veered off my path, and I was accepted to ASU Law, and I was working for a big firm, and I had a wake-up call and got struck by lightning, literally.
Yeah.
They changed my path, and so kind of figured out if the Lord gives you a hammer, drive nails.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to ask if it's something you're tired of. I'm sure everyone brings it up because it's so rare to get struck by lightning, What was it? So was it like a fishing trip or something? And then afterwards you decided to more get into your music?
Yeah, it was a fishing trip, and, it wasn't just like it hit me and I had a revelation like that. It wasn't like that. It was, I don't recommend it. It's really painful, It paralyzed my right arm, and I had to rebuild the motor skills in my hand, and that took a while.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a brain surgeon who recommended that I get a finger chart and learn how to play classical guitar. And so I did that. You number your fingers and you learn how to pick. And I started having these dreams at night. I started dreaming songs, and I'd wake up and grab a tape recorder and I'd sing it in a tape recorder, and I would get a chord chart and I'd find the chords from what it sounded like, which was pretty bad, I imagine, and what it sounded like, find the chord, and I'd go find the music, and I learned how to play a lot of the chords that I do now from that. And so, because I'm self-taught, some of my hand positioning is unique, and I usually grow the nails out of my right hand because I finger pick, and then playing lead guitar like a Telecaster, I use my index finger and my thumb as my picks, strike down on that big E string with a big thumbnail. And this year is really interesting. For the first time I've ever seen it, there's a guy named Jack Pearson of the Allman Brothers. The Allman Brothers say he's one of the best guitar players, the best guitar player they ever had. And he played on my album on 4 songs. We brought him in to play some blues stuff. So there's the thing that I wrote called "Give It to Me Straight, Just Like Texas Whiskey," and then we covered an old Dylan song, and we did it like Mississippi Delta blues, and it's really hardcore Delta blues, and it's called "Everything Is Broken." And Jack was playing that, and he has this big thumbnail, and he's striking down on that bass, on that E string, and using it to drag the E string. And that's the first time I ever seen somebody else do that. And I went, wow, there's a guy, there's one of the best players in the world, and he does the same thing. And I've been putting up with a lot of crap for years, from my cowboy friends. We'll be on the road, and I'll break a nail, and like I'll be under the hood of 79 Peterbilt working on it, and all of a sudden I crack a nail like the day before show, and it's like somebody taking one of your wrenches away,
Yeah.
So you get up, like, man, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I broke a nail. They're like, what? Broke a nail? Okay, cowboy up,
Wow. Well, the phrase "the Lord works in mysterious ways," I think definitely applies with you and getting struck by lightning and being self-taught. It's amazing. So let's talk about you find your passion for music. You kind of rehabbing. let's talk about your musical journeys, because you were born in Arizona. I guess, are you based in Texas and Nashville, or do you live in like one?
Well, I live in both places. So I've got the Nashville thing, I spent a lot of years out there chasing it. And that was a total God thing too. I'd be out literally, like, I had over 100 employees in Arizona working for me. And I had a few restaurants and a honky tonk. And I'd be out living in a 57 Chevy pickup truck, doing what they call the couch series, and I was out there running fence for a farmer. And I get a call one day, and he directs me to a guy to go help him build out a studio, frame out a studio. So I'm over there framing out a studio, and it ends up being Cochran's house. And that wasn't the first break I got, but
Wow.
there's a lot of little things that happen like that where you'll just be out there and you're kind of without hope, and you're not really, things aren't going the direction that you want them to. And then just a door gets swung open, and then all of a sudden you're there. You look up, and a revelation for me was about the Nashville thing was, I was back in Arizona, and I have a little cabin up there in the woods, and I was watching this old video that my aunt and uncle gave me called the Sue Brewer Tribute. And in that, it had all my heroes, and they were doing a tribute to Sue Brewer. They had Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson and Red Lane and Hank Cochran and Richie Albright and Max D. Barnes, Harlan Howard. And I'd watched it several times before, but I'd watched it a decade ago, and then I turned it on, and I looked in the room around the round circle where they were passing the guitar, and I was working with 90% of the guys in that room.
Wow.
So,
it's pretty amazing.
Long story short, one of the guys I wrote with was Red Lane, and he's like a second father to me. Really good man, and Red taught me a lot. He was hard on me. It was a hard lesson kind of thing. He'd beat you up pretty good. And that's the thing is I came up with the old school guys, Richie Albright, Waylon's producer, and Hank Cochran. And those guys don't give you anything, man. You got to earn it. They just really beat you up for it. So it gets downtrodden and it gets discouraging, but you learn the lessons. Well, anyway, Red, he had a 168-foot DC-8 airplane that he made a house. And so we lost him about 4 years ago, and I got a call that they were going to scrap the house for aluminum, and it broke my heart because that was his dream to have that house. He's a pilot too, and I went out there, and there's a guy that owns the pilot development, and I worked out a deal with him and bought the house. So I've got that house in Nashville, and I go back there and write and invite my writer buddies over. And the legacy continues because they wrote songs in that plane with Red too. And so I wrote a lot of songs in that DC-8. And I had a song of mine that I was going to put out there on the radio, and we were really hoping to single it. And Red got cancer, and he was going down fast. And I decided to release one of his songs called "The Coast Is Clear." He wrote it with Scotty Emmerich, and one of the really neat things is that before he died, he got to see that song go Billboard #9, and so.
Oh, that's amazing.
It feel good, that he got to see something coming out of his work, because he put a lot of time into me. So anyway, I go back to Nashville, but most of the time I'm around Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, cool.
Just north of
You've been,
Dallas.
I guess, recording a lot. I mean, you mentioned some people's names already, but I guess you've been recording a lot of different people this past year, I believe. You have a project with Richie and the legendary Augie Myers. So can you talk
yeah. Augie's awesome. Augie was, most people know him from Hey Baby Que Paso. He was in the Texas Tornadoes. I know you know this, but a lot of times when you mention his name, like in parts of Texas, they go, Augie Myers. I heard that name. And then you tell them, Hey Baby Que Paso. Oh, I love that song. And then pretty common with artists. They know the songs better than they do in fact, it's getting to where you talk to people in their 20s and they don't know who Waylon Jennings is, But you say, mamas don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. oh yeah, I know that song. My dad listens to it. You know. So yeah, Augie. So man, he's a great guy. I was recording a session, and one of my little traditions is um, I'll back up just a little bit. There's this wonderful bass player named Kevin Grant, and he went through a personal tragedy, and he's been on just hundreds of gold records, man. And like, you know, and like since B. Spears died, he played on all those records for Willie Nelson, and he was in Waylon's band and all the Toby Keith records, and just, you know, I can just keep going and going. And anyway, he'd hung it up, and he lost his wife.
Oh.
Under the house, and I was texting him, you know, and I was telling him I have a project coming up, and it was a long-awaited project. We've been waiting a long time to get back in the studio, and he hadn't answered me yet, and it was like about the third text. And I've got this tradition where when I go in the studio, I cook New Mexico green chili, and I make the boys New Mexico red chili enchiladas, and on different days, you know. And I make homemade rice and beans and Spanish squash, and it's an old family recipe that was passed down, and I learned how to do it when I was in college because I was away starving and didn't know how to cook. So I came home and learned how to do all that stuff. And anyway, long story short on that, Kevin texted me back, and he said, "Are you making green chili?" And I said, "Yeah." And so we went back in the studio and started recording this project. And
I like the code word for it too. That's a cool story.
Connect up with Augie, because those guys have all been on those. You know, a lot of the players cross into those records. Kevin and my steel player Scotty Sanders, and quite a few of those other players I use, like James Mitchell. If you look up a Willie Nelson video, you'll see James on a lot of his videos where he's doing studio shots. James is that guy with the big beard playing guitar. And anyway, so I was in there serving the guys enchiladas on the session, and we were taking a lunch break, and it was day one. And I had some boys that came in from Fort Worth and Dallas to watch me. They were hanging out with me. So they were eating the enchiladas too. And I was making the last pass around with the glass pan, serving out the last enchilada. So I put the spatula under there, and one of my buddies had asked for seconds. So I put it on his plate, and I said, "There you go, Hoss, you got the whole enchilada." And I thought, hey, man, I should write that. And I think I even said it, hey, I should write that. And so at the end of this session, like a 4-day session, we had some extra time to do 2 more songs. And I picked up the phone and called Augie, and I said, hey, I got an idea for a song called The Whole Enchilada. And it's about this honky tonk, and these cowboys are in there, and they run across this girl, and she's got the whole enchilada, you know. And so they end up going back to his casita, and you know, they get all torn up on tequila and margaritas, and then he wakes up and his head is killing him, and she's gone. And now she got away with his money and everything else. She rolled him whole enchilada. Anyway, so I cut that with all that. Called him, and he said, well, man, you know, just track it, and what's the melody? And I sang it to him, and he goes, well, you got a pretty good melody and a chorus going, just track it and we'll write the verses. So I just tracked it, you know. So I come back in the studio, and I said, and they said, Danny, what's the next song? And I said, it's the Augie Myers thing we're working on. It's called The Whole Enchilada. And they said, do you have a chart? And I said, well, not yet. Kevin, let's go out to the bus and we'll write one. So I like jumped up and ran out to the tour bus, and, you know, it took him a couple minutes to get out there. And I had my guitar, and I'm working out the verse because I didn't know what it was. And I'm kind of piecing it together with a pen and working out the melody. And he comes in and he goes, play it for me. So I said, okay. And there was, you know, I kind of played a chorus, and I hummed the verses and played a few words here and there that I already had and lines. And he goes, so you're not even done writing this? And I said, well, you know, we're close. Augie and I are working on it. And he goes, melody sounds good to me, man. Let's chart it. And we charted it. And by the time we charted it, I had a real rough version of it. So I had enough lyrics to sing it. And I sang what I had. And we took the track, and I always record on 2-inch tape, you know, like it's an old school thing.
Oh, yeah. Good old audio days, you know.
Yeah, because it's got that warmth, that bottom end warmth, and it's a real recording. It's not digital. It's not a translation of X's and O's. It's real. So I took the tape and got on a plane and flew down to San Antonio. We went in with Augie's engineer and we finished writing the song, and we both sang it right there in San Antonio. So, and then like about a month later, it was on South Texas radio.
Oh, very cool. You also, I guess, you did some duets recently with Jesse Coulter, and I guess another one with Waylon Jennings. I guess that was supposed to get released earlier. That's finally going to get released. Can you help me out on that one?
I didn't even, we hadn't even told anybody about the Jesse thing. I don't know where you're getting your information.
Oh, your latest press release had something on there. So I guess, is this exclusive?
Jesse's on, Jesse Coulter was on one of my favorite albums ever called Wanted the Outlaws.
Mm-hmm.
And her first platinum country record. And she had a few big hits from that album and some other hits. And she's just a wonderful singer. And I've just been knocked over for years by this song that Waylon co-wrote with Tom Dunham called Nothing Catches Jesus by Surprise. And we got down to the end of the session, and we had one more song after the Whole Enchilada. I didn't think we'd have time to do it, but Richie said, "Man, you got time for one more?" He got one. I said, "Well, I've always wanted to track that thing, Nothing Catches Jesus by Surprise. Can I do it?" And I felt like I had to ask permission because Waylon's the only one to ever cut it. And I take that back. John Michael Montgomery has a version. But it's kind of hollow ground,
Yeah.
So I tracked the thing, and I had half of the guys that were on the record in the studio with me at the time, so they all knew it. And so Reggie Young, we just lost Tim, and James Mitchell was a prodigy, and one of his big heroes was Reggie Young, and so his style, he can play Reggie's style very, very well. And so and I ended up asking Reggie's wife, Jenny Lynn, to play on it. She asked her to put a cello on it. And when she heard James playing, she got goosebumps and said, "It's like Reggie's in the room." She started crying.
Oh.
There's so much energy on the record.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to record with Sheryl Crow. I think she's an amazing artist. And I don't have a door there. I can't get to her. And Richie said, "Who do you want to record this thing with?" And I said, "Well, I'll just give you the top of the list, Sheryl Crow." And he was like, "Well, good luck getting to her."
She's probably on everybody's list,
So we're gonna have to think somebody else to play this, and record this one. Maybe you can look around Texas for an artist, Danny, and see who you can record it with. And I said, and then it just hit me. I'm like, well, shoot, the best person on the planet to record this with would be Jesse Coulter. Nobody's going to sing it better than her, and she's a hero, and her husband wrote it. So he thought about it for a second, and I said, "Come on, Rich, you just ask her. All she can do is say no and kick you." And she said, "Okay." And he said, "Okay, I'll pitch it to her." She wanted to hear the recording, so so I went in the studio and sang it because I didn't have it sung yet, and I had to put something down, so I just put down a scratch vocal, and we did a rough mix on it and sent it to her, and she said, "Yeah, absolutely." And then I took the tape and jumped on a plane and flew out to Arizona, and she lived up in Fairbury, and a few days later we had Jesse Coulter and myself singing "Nothing Catches Jesus by Surprise."
Very cool.
Do that.
When did it get released?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's kind of like I went in and recorded 23 songs, mm-hmm. And so we have a double album, and of course, when you do that, you don't release everything. You hang on to it like it's gold, and I'm really confident in the material on this album. I really think that. We just lose the feed. My battery's getting low. I'm real confident on the album and the material, and I think that there's a lot of singles on it. So of course I don't want to throw them all out there. And I really think that the Jesse Coulter thing is probably a 2021 kind of thing. because we have just so much stuff coming out right now, and it's a wonderful piece of material. I don't want to. It deserves to have a, airplay and then a shot at it. So.
Gotcha. Well, I feel like I could talk to you all day. You live in such an interesting life. I feel like there should be like a movie about you, but you seem so humble. You probably wouldn't want that, you know?
Well, I'm just now getting ugly enough to be a bad guy in a Western. Sign me up. I want to do that.
Okay, let's do that. Where can people stay up to date, website, social media wise with you? And we'll be in touch down the road, you know?
Yeah, I'd love to be back on your show. Thanks for having me on the show. Really appreciate it. Hey, if I could put in a spot, just real quick, we talked about the Waylon.
Before your battery dies.
There you go. We talked about the Waylon thing, and I've got a duet coming out with him that we recorded before he passed away called At the Crossroads, and we went down to the Mississippi Delta and shot it. And it's about not selling your soul. And that's going to be coming out this fall. Hopefully we can get it done by then with all this national crisis stuff going on. We've been really slowed down there. It's been tough. And also I'd like to just say, if y'all could check out a song that I have called 22. I sang it with a guy named KP Fitz, and it's about the 22 veterans a day committing suicide.
Oh, that's horrible.
Passionate about veterans and helping them because they're the ones that guard our wall.
Absolutely. We owe our freedom to them.
Yes, sir. We sure do. So if y'all could check out 22 on YouTube, I'd really appreciate that. You just type in 22 and put in Danny or KP and it'll pop up.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And we'll definitely be talking down the road. All right.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you.